Hi everyone, I'm CS Punshi, Indirect Tax Expert at ClearTax, and in this session we are going to cover about the annual reconciliation and also understand about the last change to claim the ITC for financial year 21-22. We all understand that there are recent notification which has been issued and there is some extension which has been given, like the extension is up to 30th November. So what exactly that mean and whether it is even applicable for FY 21-22 or not, we are going to discuss about all of this thing in detail. So with this, we'll just start our session. But before that, I just want to check if you all are able to hear me or not. So if you are able to hear me, just say hi on the chat box. So it seems like everyone is able to hear me. With this, we'll just start our today's session, which is on the annual reconciliation, last chance to claim ITC for FY 21-22. So here the first and the most important change is about the extension of the due date for availment of ITC, which is up now 30th of November. What exactly that change means? So if we just talk about if we want to claim ITC for our previous year, if I talk about FY 21-22, so the maximum time limit for which I can claim the ITC related to FY 21-22 was my September due date. And we know that we claim ITC today in the form which is GSTR 3B. So in GSTR 3B, we used to claim the ITC for FY 21-22, right? So not even FY 21-22 in general also, if I have to claim ITC, I always claim the ITC in my GSTR 3B form. So when I claim ITC in my GSTR 3B form, here if I say that I missed claiming some ITC for FY 21-22, so I used to claim it in my 3B, and the due date for filing my GSTR 3B for the month of September used to be 20th of October or maybe 22nd or 24, depending on if I am a monthly filer or I'm a quarterly filer. So depending on that, I used to know that okay, I have to claim ITC, and I used to claim in my September return, and I have to file my September also within the timeline. So if I file my September return within the timeline and I have claimed any ITC which is related to financial year, which is previous financial year, I was allowed to claim. Question is, what is the change here? So the change over here is that now you can claim the ITC till 30th of November. What exactly that means? First question is whether that means that I can claim ITC in any other form other than GSTR 3B. The answer is no. I still have to claim my ITC in my GSTR 3B form, right? So if I have to claim my if I have to claim my ITC in my GSTR 3B form, that means ultimately I have to file my GSTR 3B of the month of October by my due date, which is 20th of November. So if I have to claim ITC, any ITC which is related to my previous year, maximum when I can claim is my October return period. So while I file my GSTR 3B for the month of October, I will be able to claim that ITC. Right? There is no problem there. But here, one important point which we have to keep in our mind, because the question would be okay, if you're saying that I can claim the ITC in my GSTR 3B and I can claim maximum till my October return period, so the due date is like 20th of November, then what is the use of this 30th November? What exactly that means? So, here the part is that if you are delaying in filing, let's say I'm not filing October return by like 20th of November, rather I'm filing on 30th November, will I be allowed to claim the ITC which was pertaining to my previous financial, which I mentioned in that October return period? Answer is yes, I can claim that. What if I filed my October return on, let's say, 1st of December, and that return actually have some ITC which was related to my previous financial year? Would I be allowed to claim that? The answer is no. So if I say that in October return period, I have delayed filing the return, which is my GSTR 3B, and I filed on 1st December, and there was some ITC which was related to FY 21-22. Will I be allowed? The answer is no, I will not be allowed to claim that ITC. What if I mention some ITC related to FY 21-22 in my November return? Let's say I want to file my obviously November return, and I can file my November return till 20th of December, Will I be allowed to claim ITC which was related to FY 21-22 in my November return period? Maybe I will ask you whether that will be allowed or not. So here, if I just say, right, I will be allowed to claim the ITC or not. So I'm just waiting for your answer. I would like if you can answer on that. If I have filed my GST 3B, right, for the month of November on let's say 20th December, which is a due date, I have shown some ITC which was related to my previous financial year, which is FY 21-22, whether I will be allowed to claim that ITC or not. So here the answer is no. Why? Because the maximum time limit for claiming the ITC for your previous year is 30th November. So which means maximum I can claim only till my October return. In October return, I can always claim that if I am filing on time, then which means my due date becomes 20th of November. If I am delaying in that, then I can claim any ITC till 30th of November. So this is for the monthly filer. What about the quarterly filer? We all understand that the quarterly filers, they have to file for a particular quarter, and they're going to file for July, August, September quarter by October, right? So ultimately you are saying that the maximum time limit, if they are a compliant person, they're not delaying in the return, which means maximum they can claim
Sarvi,
only
there
till.
might be some problem with your audio. Maybe mic, it's far.
Okay,
Okay,
is it
is
still
it
the
still
same problem? Now
the
you're able to hear me.
actually, I am able to hear you, but customers are not, users are not able to hear. One sec. My audio is very audible, it seems. Your audio maybe mic problem or something.
Okay,
There is a disturbance also. Now it is clear.
all right, so we'll just continue. So
Hmm.
here we were just talking about the due date, right? Like the due date for claiming the ITC. So we are saying that we can claim till 30th November. And when we just talk about the quarterly person, right? So quarterly filers, they can file their return for the quarter ended September, and there's a due date for that, which is the next month 30th. So let's say 20th October is a due date over there. So maximum they can claim ITC only till that particular date. And if they delay in filing that particular quarter return, then they can claim till 30th November. But if they're compliant, they don't want to pay any late fees and all, then the maximum time limit till when we can claim the ITC is like 20th of October only. So this is like a very important thing which we should understand. Though apparently when we look into this, we say that we can claim ITC 30th November, which means maybe I can file in my November return period. So that's not the right thing. So here the maximum time limit when I claim the ITC in my October return period only, and if I am compliant, so which means due date of my 3B filing, and if I'm making some delays in filing, then maybe by 30th of November. So I have to file my return by 30th of November. Or even if my previous month, let's say I'm claiming in September. So even if you're claiming in the return September for FY 21-22, you have to make sure that September return has been filed by 30th November. If that's not the case, then in that case you won't be allowed to claim ITC which is related to your previous financial year. So this is like a very important thing which we should understand. Right, so this was a change when we talk about the extension of the due date of availment of ITC to 30th November. And hope this is clear. I know there was some audio problem in between, so I don't know if you were able to understand this clearly or not. So just for just to make sure that you all understand this properly, I will just repeat this once. I will just summarize this, that what exactly we just discussed over here. तो हमने बात करी कि कोई भी अगर मेरा आईटीसी है प्रीवियस फाइनेंशियल ईयर का, now here previous financial year also includes FY 21-22. So the biggest question was, is this extension also applicable for FY 21-22? The answer is yes. So this is also applicable for 21-22. Now the thing is, if there is some ITC which was related to FY 21-22, today I was able to claim that ITC only till September ka due date, which means 3B filing of September, which used to be 20th of October or 22nd or 24th October. Now this date has been extended, which means now I can claim the ITC till 30th of November. What exactly that means? Is it like I can claim the ITC in my November return period? The answer is no. I can claim ITC today again in my GSTR 3B form. And when I'm claiming ITC in my GSTR 3B form, which means I can claim maximum in my October return period. And the due date for filing my GSTR 3B for the October is 20th of let's say 20th of November. So which means maximum I can claim the ITC by 20th of November. But if I do a delay in filing, let's say I'm not filing my October return on 20th of November, rather I'm filing on 30th November, will that ITC be allowed? The answer is yes. That ITC will be allowed if even if I am delaying in filing my GSTR 3B for the month of October and I filed my GSTR 3B by this particular date, which is 30th of November. What if I file my October return on 1st December and there was some ITC which was related to FY 21-22? Will that be allowed? The answer is no. If there is some ITC which is related to FY 21-22 and I have filed my October return on 1st December, that ITC will not be allowed. Assume that there was September return. There was September return. You mentioned some ITC which was related to FY 21-22, but you have not filed your September return by, let's say, 20th of October. Rather, you filed on 1st December. Whether the ITC which was related to my previous financial year in the September return will be allowed, the answer is again no. So here it is really very important that when exactly you are filing your GST 3B. So now it's not only the return period, it is also the filing date. So if you file by 30th of November, then ITC, which is related to financial, which is previous financial year, it will be allowed. Otherwise, that ITC will not be allowed. Right? So this was something which we just discussed here when it comes to the claiming of ITC. Hope this part is now clear, and still if you have certain confusion you can just post your query on the chat box, so I will keep on taking your queries also, so you can just keep on posting your queries over there. Now the second change is about the extension of time limit for amendments. So we all understand that in GST1 we can do certain amendments, certain additions and all. Let's say I missed reporting one invoice which was related to my previous year, which is 21-22. So I missed reporting that invoice itself. Can I report that invoice in my current GST one? Yes, you can always do that, right? So if there were certain amendments, can I do that? I can do that, but there is a time limit for that. It's not like I can endlessly just keep on adding information over there. Let's say there was some B2B invoice. I filed my B2B invoice correctly, but what I have done, I realized a mistake that instead of writing GST of X person, I have entered the GST of Y person. And if I've done such mistake, in that particular case, what will happen? I will be allowed to do that amendment, but there is again a time limit for that. So today, if you look into it, there was a time limit that was September due date, which means September due date was obviously like 11th of October. So maximum by 11th October, I was allowed to do certain amendments which was related to my previous financial year. Now the date has been extended till 30th of November. Again, important point, this is not your November return period, rather it's a date till when you can do the amendment, which means ultimately you can do all the amendment related to your previous financial year only till October return period. If you are a monthly filer, you will be able to do all amendment for the month of October till like 11th of November. So till 11th November you will be able to do all the amendments and all, because if I am assuming you are compliant. But let's say you are doing some late filing and all. If you're doing some late filing, you have to pay the late fees, but you will be allowed to do amendment till 30th of November. So if you're filing your October return till 30th November, still you will be allowed to do amendment. But if you're filing that particular return on, let's say, 1st December, and you're trying to amend any invoice which is related to the previous financial year, in that case the GST portal will itself not allow that. So this is like a second very important change here. This is about the extension of the time limit. So ultimately when we look into this, for a monthly filer the extension is 1 month, and when we look into a quarterly filer, there's no such extension also. Because if we think about the quarterly filer, right, they're going to file the return for the October, November, they're going to file July, August, September, which is September end date, right? So maximum they are going to file this return by your next month, October, right, which is 11th of October. So if they are going to file the GST1 by 11th of October, in that particular case, ultimately if they're a compliant person and if they have to do any amendments related to the previous year, they will be able to do this till 11th of October, right? So which means amendments related to previous year can be done maximum till 11th of October, unless they decide that they are going to delay the return. If they delay the return, in that case, they will be able to do any amendments till 30th of November. But in that particular case, they also have to pay the late fees. So if they are compliant, then the due date actually is not even extended. But if they are not, and if they have to pay some late fees and all, in such case for them, they can always do certain amendments till 30th of November. Right, so this is like a another change which is related to the, I would say, the amendments and the additions which we have to do for the previous financial year. Now the third important change is about the due date for declaration of the credit note, right? So here if we talk about the due date for the declaration of the credit note, remember this is not the issuance, it's a declaration. Because I think there is also one important thing which we are hearing is, okay, now I can actually issue the credit note till 30th November, which in respect of the supply which is related to my previous financial year. So if you're saying that, let's say there was an invoice dated 31st March 2022, right? And I want to raise a credit note against that particular invoice. Can I raise a credit note on 30th of November 2022 in respect to the supply which was related to my previous financial year? I would say the answer is no. Why? Because think about, if you're going to raise a credit note on 30th of November 2022, you will be declaring that credit note for that November month only in like October, because you will be filing your November return only in the month, in December. So ultimately, you're going to file your November return only in the month of December. So if you're going to file your November return only in the month of December, that is not even allowed, right? Think about what will happen to your GST9. Think about how your GST9 will be impacted, right? So the government, they don't want that. They want that you should declare all the credit note in respect to the supply which was related to the previous financial year till 30th of November. Ultimately, you should issue all the credit note in respect to the supply for the previous financial year till October last, which is 31st October. You should be able to issue that, so that ultimately you are also able to report that. So this is another important point which we should understand. This is a declaration and not the issuance. So here again the date is 30th of November. So you can declare all this thing till 30th of November. Now the another important point. What if I actually have wrongly shown some liability in my GSTR 3B? I have over reported or under reported some liability in 3B, which is related to my FY 21-22. Can I rectify that in my GSTR 3B form? The answer is yes, you can always do that. And the due date for that is again 30th November. Again, when I'm saying 30th November, you have to remember one thing. This is not the return period November, this is still October return period. Or maybe if you're a quarterly person, then it's a September quarter ended September. So the due date of that has to be considered, unless you decide in delaying your return itself. So if you're delaying the return, then if you file that return till 30th of November, in such case you will be able to do any rectification which is related to your previous financial year. Otherwise, you won't be able to do that. So this is like exact meaning of this. Like what exactly when we are saying due date of the making rectification in 3B is extended. So this is what we exactly mean by this. So this was like a fourth important change when we talk about the rectifications which we have to do. So here, ultimately, when we talk about annual reconciliation, right, we are saying last chance to claim ITC. Till when I can actually claim ITC? So if I'm a quarterly filer, maximum, and I'm assuming that you're a compliant person, you're not dealing in filing. So maximum the due date for filing your like September and like quarter ended September, which is till October only, you will be able to do all the amendments, rectifications in 1 and GSTR 3B, right? And if you're a monthly filer, then the maximum till October return period, which means the due date of the October you will be able to. So which is 11th of November or 20th of November, depending on whether you're doing any changes in your GSTR 1 or GSTR 3B, you would be allowed to do that. Hope this part is clear. Now I will talk about the other important changes which government have made. So if you have to do, right, what do you have to do? You have to make sure that all reconciliations has been done properly. You are reconciling your GST1, GST3B and the books of account now itself, and doing all the changes, all the amendments which you have to do, or if you have underreported some liability, report it now only, and don't wait till the last moment. I would still suggest, even the date has been extended, it's always good that you do all the reconciliation now and do the corresponding changes in the September return period itself, so that you also file your annual return on time. Because if you don't do that, the bigger problem is that think from the recipient angle also. I will now give you one simple example. Very simple example is, let's say I'm saying, okay, you can do all this thing till 30th of November. Let's say you can do amendment in your GST1 for the month of October till 30th of November, right? So ultimately, if you are saying October return, you filed on 30th of November, right? October month return you have filed on 30th of November. If you have done that, then recipient will able to see this particular invoice in their GST 2B also, but the recipient will not see this invoice in their October return period. Rather, they will be able to see this invoice in their November return period. And from the recipient angle, if they're seeing this in their November return period, they won't be able to even claim ITC because they were not able to see that invoice on time. So this is like a very bigger challenge. When we look into the recipient angle also, they won't be able to claim ITC. Then they will say, hey, I'm not able to claim ITC, why should I make the payment to you in respect of the purchases I made from you? So they will not make you the tax payment in such cases because they were not able to claim ITC. So you should not wait, you should not delay in filing your GST1. Rather, make sure that you do all the amendments on time, irrespective of whether the date has been extended or not. So there is some recommendation we should do, and we should not think only from the supplier angle, and also used to think from the, or we should actually think from the recipient angle, that how is this going to impact the recipient, right? So this was like a fourth important change. Now the fifth important change here, we always used to say that if the supplier has not made the payment, I will not be able to claim ITC. As per section number 16, this condition was always there, that we can claim ITC only when the supplier has made the payment. So this was always there, right? So there was no problem. But the question was, who is even following this? And the reason why I'm not able to follow this, because the due date for me to file 3B and the due date for that person to file 3B is the same. How would I know that that person has made the payment and then I will be able to claim ITC? Right? I can't do that. Practically, that is not even possible. So here they are going to give some time limit over there, that when you have to do a reversal. But if, even if you have made the payment to the supplier in respect of the taxes, still you will not be allowed to claim the ITC if that supplier has not deposited that money to the government. And if you have claimed the ITC, then you have to reverse that ITC, and along with reversing the ITC, you also have to pay the interest on top of that. And whenever the supplier actually make the payment in respect of that supply, obviously he will also pay the interest because he have delayed in making the payment. So the question is, and whenever the supplier, right, so whenever the supplier goes and make the payment and actually pay the interest, the question is whether you will be able to claim the ITC now. The government says yes. Once the supplier make the payment in respect of that supply, you will be allowed to claim the ITC. But then what about the interest which I have paid? Will I get that interest back? The answer is no. So here, in case the supplier is not making the payment to the government, you will not be allowed to claim the ITC. And if you have claimed that ITC, you have to reverse that ITC. Along with reversing that ITC, you also have to pay the interest on top of that at the rate of 18%. And whenever the supplier make the payment to the government, you can reclaim that ITC, but in that case, the interest loss will always be there. You can't do anything about the interest loss, despite the supplier already paying the interest because of delay in the payment to the government. So the government is actually collecting the interest from supplier as well as the recipient. So this is like another change. And though it's not fair that they are collecting from supplier and the recipient interest, which is on the same transaction, at least should not be done. But that is how the law has been made. Now the another very important change which we all should understand, because this is something where again we have a lot of confusion. This is about that ITC we cannot claim if it is under the ITC not available category in our GSTR 2B. So when we look into our GSTR 2B, right, today GSTR 2B have two parts. One is ITC available, another is ITC not available. Under the ITC not available, there are two reasons why they have categorized this under the ITC not available. The one reason is because of the place of supply different. A very simple example. I am registered, right? I am registered in the state of Karnataka. I visited, let's say, Maharashtra. I stayed there in a hotel, and that hotelier is going to raise the invoice on me. They asked the GSTN. I shared my Karnataka GSTN with that because I was registered in the state of Karnataka. So I asked, okay, you raise the invoice on this particular GSTN, and that person said, okay, I will raise the invoice. The person charged CGST and SGST. So that hotelier is going to charge CGST and SGST. Why? Because as per the place of supply provision, in case of the immobile property, the place of supply is the state where that immobile property is located. And the immobile property was located in, let's say, Maharashtra, which is in Mumbai. Right? So it was located there. So they mentioned the place of supply is Maharashtra. They charge CGST, SGST because supplier state was also Maharashtra. Place of supply is also Maharashtra. So they charge CGST and SGST. Though I am registered in the state of Karnataka. So when I see this invoice in my GST 2B, today this invoice will be reflected under ITC not available section because the place of supply mentioned by the supplier in their GST 1 and the place of supply, or I would say the state in which I am registered is Karnataka, and whenever there is a difference in this two, the government show this as ITC not available. So here they are saying that whatever is under the ITC not available category, in respect of that particular supply, the ITC will not be allowed. So you cannot claim ITC on such transaction. Right. So now this has been clearly called out in section 16. So earlier there used to be a lot of confusion, right? Many times people used to say, hey, what if I charge IGST on the transaction? What if even if if there was a difference, let's say I understand that there is a difference here between my state and whatever they have charged, I should be allowed to claim the CGST credit. I understand I will not be allowed SGST credit, but I should be allowed CGST credit. Right? There were a lot of dispute over there. But now they have clearly mentioned that whatever has been defined as ITC not available under the GSTR 2B, you will not be allowed to claim the ITC on that. Now, the second reason, right, when we again look into your GSTR 2B, there's a second reason which is again categorized under the ITC not available. And the second reason was where you say ITC not available is where there is some invoice which is related to the previous financial year. And we know there is a due date to claim ITC which is 30th November now. So if there is any invoice which has been filed after that, that will also be shown under the ITC not available section. So which means you will not be allowed to claim the ITC. So wherever there is a time barred thing, supplier can always report because obviously government would need the taxes, right? They're not going to stop them to upload that invoice. So supplier will upload, but you as a recipient will not be allowed to claim the ITC on top of that, and it will always come under the ITC not available section of your GSTR 2B. Right? So whatever is coming under the ITC not available section, you will not be allowed to claim the ITC on that transaction. So this was like another change which has been done by the government. So you have to be very cautious while you're claiming the ITC in your GST 3B, and especially after the recent changes, right, which was applicable from the August return period, where the government is actually asking for all the breakup. What they are saying, as per table number 4A5, you show that this is the all ITC, which is the all eligible ITC as per your 2B, right? So whatever the not available ITC as per 2B, you directly show under the 4D2. So 4D2, you show all the ITC not available as per 2B directly over there, and show all the eligible ITC as per 2B under 4A5. And we all understand the same time that whatever is coming as a eligible ITC as per 2B, I can't claim the total ITC. Why can't I claim it? If someone is saying, government is saying this is the eligible ITC as per 2B, question is why can't I claim in the entire ITC? Obviously, there is section 16 other conditions too. And when we look into the other conditions of section 16, the conditions are that it should not be the blocked ITC as per section 17.5. For example, I purchase a motor vehicle, but I'm not into that business, right? I'm not into the business of supplying of that motor vehicle or into the passenger transport or goods transport, right? So still in that case, I can't claim ITC. So even if I have purchased, I can't claim ITC. So if that's the case, they say first you should report under 4A5, then you do a permanent reversal under 4D1, right? So 4A5, you show the ITC as per 3B that this is as per my 2B, it is even reflecting over there, but then you do the reversal. So on the net, you're not claiming ITC on such transition, but they're asking for a total breakup. Earlier we used to show net figure there from the 4A5 itself. I'm like, okay, it is ineligible ITC, I will not show it there. But now they say no, 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 wait, I need a proper breakup over there, because many times people used to just say at an overall level, they say okay, anyway I'm claiming ITC less than what is coming in my 2B, so I'm okay, there is no problem. But that's not the case here, because what used to happen there is I'm claiming less because of lot of block credit which is there in my 2B, right? That's the reason I was claiming less. But here the government says that you check at a document level and then tell me, okay, this is your block credit and do the reversal. And if still there is some ITC available in your GST at 2B, where you say that it's not a block credit, I don't have to reverse, but maybe future may I will get that invoice because I have not received the goods or the services, I can't claim ITC. Then maybe you may do a temporary reversal today, and then you may do a reclaiming of that ITC, and then report in 4D1. So that is some changes which they have done, and so that we have to do a proper reconciliation with how we are showing in 2B and how I am showing in my GST 3B. So if there are certain purchase invoices which is not even reflecting in my 2B, I don't have to even report that in my GST 3B. That I have to separately keep with me and see when it exactly comes in my GST 2B, and accordingly I will be able to claim the ITC on such transaction. So which means ultimately the reconciliation between 2B and the purchase register becomes really very important, because otherwise you won't be able to even fill your 3B properly. You won't be able to show all that breakup properly. So you have to do all this reconciliation on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis, depending on whether you're a monthly or a quarterly filer, and accordingly file your GST or 3B. So this is something they are saying, that if there is some ITC which is not available as per GST 2B, you will not be able to claim that ITC, right? But the thing is there only two reasons where it will come under the ITC not available? If you ask me today, yes. There are only two reasons where it comes under the ITC not available section of your GST 2B, which is place of supply problem and the time bar thing. But the government have also notified section 38. I was like, okay, 38 was always notified. What exactly they have notified? So they have actually revised that entire section. So in the Finance Act, there was a revised section 38, but that was not notified. Now they have actually notified the revised section 38, which means your entire section 38 has been revised. Now, what exactly this revised 38 section talks about? And this is actually a very dangerous section which we should read very carefully, because here the importance of knowing your supplier is actually increasing. If you are not knowing your supplier, and if your supplier is not compliant, you will not be even allowed to claim ITC. And let's actually understand what would be the reason where on the default by the supplier, you as a recipient will not be allowed to claim the ITC. Let's discuss about that. So if you look into revised section 38, this says that Earlier we used to have a lot of concept of this two-way communication where we used to have GST 1, GST 2, GST 3 and all of that thing, which was there in July 2017, but then it was kind of scrapped and all. So they have removed all that provision, right? They have cleaned that. And now they have introduced that whenever the supplier files GST 1, all this ITC will be reflected in GST 2B, which means they have now given the importance to GST 2B. And in GST 2B, it will be categorized into two parts. What is ITC available and another is ITC not available. In that ITC available also, if you feel that there's some ITC you can't claim because of section 16 or 17, you should reverse that ITC. And in respect of the ITC not available, right, they have increased the conditions now there. So under the ITC not available, there would be few more condition where it will be considered as an ITC not available. Though this section has been notified, this revised section 38 has been notified, but how exactly we have to do that, for what particular time periods and all, for that the government they have to come up with the rules. Unless they come up with the rules, we'll never be able to follow this. So let's first understand what are that particular conditions which they have mentioned where ITC in GSTR 2B will be considered as ITC not available. So the first condition they are saying, if you are going to do a purchase, right? If you are going to do any purchases from a newly registered person, there is a person who have recently registered under GST, he got a new registration. In that case, you won't be able to claim the ITC. But there would obviously be till a prescribed time period. Still, they have not told that what exactly that prescribed time period is. They will come up with a rule. Still, that rules are not there. So they are saying if you have made a purchases from a newly registered person, in that particular case, you won't be able to claim the ITC. So it means it really becomes important for you to know who are the newly registered person, because you won't be able to claim the ITC till certain point, right? Second important point is that if the supplier has defaulted in making the payment, let's say the supplier has filed GST 1, but he has not filed his GST 3B, right? Which means he has not made the payment to the government. So if the supplier is defaulting in making the payment, in that case also, you as a recipient will not be allowed to ITC. Which means even if the document was reflecting my GST at 2B, still I will not be allowed to claim that ITC. But again, they have to define what is a prescribed time limit. Till when I have to see that okay, till now this person has not filed his GST 3B, right? But this is again become a dangerous section. What if I claim my ITC in my GST 2B, seeing that okay, he has filed his GST 1 is reflecting in my 2B, and I know for the first month 3B, the time for him to file 3B and time for me to even file 3B is the same. So I don't have to see that first month, right? I may be able to see that only in the second month. Let's say he has not filed in the second month also, and now government asks me, hey, you have already claimed the ITC on that. Now reverse it, pay interest also. So that is actually going to be a problem for me. Why I have to even pay the interest on that transaction for the month at the rate of 18% per annum? That why, right? Because there that was not in my hand. At least for first one, I should be allowed to claim it, right? I should be allowed to reverse. Okay, I'm okay to reverse that ITC, but I should be charging, or the government should charge the interest only from the second month. They should not charge the interest from the first month itself. But what exactly they are going to do? Interest will be charged when I actually claim that ITC. So this is something is really going to be creating a lot of issues when it comes to my working capital management. So we have to know our suppliers very properly. We should make sure that they are filing their 1 3B on time. If that's not the case, stop making the GST payment to that supplier unless you see that their past trend is really very good. So we have to look into our supplier very carefully. We have to decide who are our supplier, then accordingly deal with them. Or you should make your profit margin so high that even if you don't claim ITC, it's not going to impact your profit. Like if I say today my GST input rate is 18%, then you should make sure that your profit margin is actually more than 18%. Because if that's not the case, then ultimately you will be into losses. Because think about if my profit margin is just 10%, and I am not able to claim that ITC of 18%, ultimately I am into a losses. Then there's no use of me even to run that business. So this is very important that you look into your supplier, and at the same time, if you feel that that person is a non-compliant, then make sure that whenever you're purchasing, you are earning a high profit there. That even if there is a loss of ITC, still net you are into a profit, right? So this is something which you should always make sure while you are looking into supplier while you are adding the supplier list into your ERPs. Now the third important point over here, that the taxes which is paid in GSTR 3B is lower than the output tax shown in GSTR 1 by the prescribed time limit. Now the another part over here is that they are saying that let's say in GSTR 1 they have reported liability as 1 lakh, but in 3B they have just shown 60,000, right? In such case you won't be allowed to claim the ITC. But again, there should be a prescribed time limit, right? So they are going to define under the rules that what would be that prescribed time limit, because this is also another problem. There could be a genuine mistake, right? Let's say I had to report 60,000 liability only in GST, but by mistake I showed 1 lakh rupees. So I should be allowed to even rectify it, right? Let's assume that in 3B I have always shown a correct thing, but in GST 1 I made a mistake. So the government always allow you to rectify in the next quarter or maybe in the next month. If I'm a monthly filer, I can rectify till maybe next month or maybe till like a 30th of November. If I'm a quarterly filer, then I can do only in the next quarter. So there would always be a prescribed time limit. Till that, if that person rectified, then maybe government will allow you to claim ITC. But if that's not the case, then you as a recipient will be punished for that, and you can't claim ITC. And if you have already claimed, you have to reverse it along with paying the interest. So this is like another change where they are saying that if the tax is paid in 3B is less than what is the output tax which is shown in GST 1 by the prescribed time end, then you will not be allowed to claim the ITC. Now the fourth one is that there is an invert supply, and this is another problem, that if they are saying that if there is a purchases you have made and that person is claiming the ITC in their GST 3B which is more than what is reflecting in 2B eligible section, then also you as a recipient will not be allowed to claim ITC. Now the bigger problem is you're saying that okay, that person is already tracking with their suppliers. Now you're saying if they are making a mistake, I will not be allowed to claim ITC. There can be a genuine thing also, right? When we look into the month on month, is a very normal thing that there is an ITC reflecting in 2B of particular month, but I have not claimed ITC. I claimed a less ITC because I didn't receive the goods or the services, right? I have not claimed in that month. Maybe in the next month I actually have claimed that ITC. So when in the next month I have claimed ITC, the ITC which is reflecting there is more than what is reflecting in 2B, right? So will I not be allowed to claim ITC here as a recipient? Ideally we should be allowed, right? So that was the main reason the government has started making that change of that table 4A5 and then do the reversal, so that they say ultimately whatever you're claiming in table 4A5 of 3B plus what is reflecting in 41 which is ITC reverse thing should always be matched, right? Whatever ITC claimed in 4A5 should always match with what is coming in your 2B plus 41 of 3B should always match. If that's not the case, then you won't be allowed to claim the ITC. But frankly speaking, this provision will still not be, I would say, practically will be, there would be difficult to follow this provision, because there would be a people, right, who are claiming the ITC from, let's say, April till, I would say, July month, right? So for April to July, this changes, the 3B changes are not even there. So I will still be allowed to claim that ITC till 30th November. And I have never reversed that ITC, right? I have never claimed that ITC, I have never reversed that ITC. So that ITC I am anyhow not going to show under 4D1. If that's the case, then in 4A5 that ITC will never be correctly reflected unless I do an adjustment entry maybe in the August or the September return itself, where I look into my 2B, see what is the unclaimed ITC, show everything under 4A5, do the reversal under maybe 4B, 4B2, and then start showing that. If I do that, then only it is okay. Otherwise, this is going to create a lot of problem from the user angle, right? I will never be able to follow that provision. So if you really want to understand about maybe what were that 3B ka changes in detail, how exactly we need to report, I would suggest all of you to just look into that 3B changes video, which is already there on the ClearTax YouTube channel. So you can always look into that. And in fact, if you ask me how you can automate that, because this is really going to be a huge problem for you to look into, do the reconciliation every month, see how the values will be populated in 3B, keep on tracking the invoices which is missing in your 2B, or keep on tracking the ITC which was missing in your PR and all. So to do all that, it can be automated, and in fact, ClearTax is already having a solution where this is already automated, where you every month run the reconciliation between 2B and the PR, and this will values will be automatically be populated in your 3B also. And we'll also have a track of that, like when to claim, when to reverse, under which section we have to reverse. So this can all be automated. So I would suggest You can even check for our demo, a live demo, where our team will show you how exactly all of this can be done, so that you make sure that at least this stress can be gone, and your work, you can just focus on business rather than on just the compliance part. But again, as we talked about, this is like a another important change which government is coming up with. Till now still they have not defined the prescribed limit, so we are on the safer side unless the government comes up with a rule and say, okay, now you have to follow this. So whenever they come up with a rule, then you are gone, like then we are like, okay, we have to look into all the provision. But till the time they come up with this prescribed limit, we have to be like, okay, we don't have to follow this. But as and when they come up with this, we have to follow this. Now, the other part is that the supplier has paid the higher proportion of tax from the electronic credit ledger than what is allowed. So we know there is a rule 86B, right, where it talks about that at least 1%, right? 1% of the liability has to be paid in the form of cash. So they cannot utilize the 100% from the electronic credit ledger. There's obviously exception to rule number 86B, and the exceptions are like if the director, the managing director is paying 1 lakh income tax and all, right? All of that provisions are already there, and I think only 1% of people or the businesses are even covered under rule 86B. So but if they are covered, if your supplier is covered under rule 86B, and most of the, I would say, startups, right, most of the startups are actually covered under this. So if they are covered under this particular rule, in that particular case, you have to make sure that they are making 1% payment in the form of cash. If they are not doing that, again, you as a recipient will not be allowed to claim the ITC. So this is again another condition which they have come up with, where they're saying you will not be allowed to claim the ITC if supplier is not paying the tax, that is 1% tax, in the form of cash. The last condition is the other notified person. Still they have not notified who that person will be. So if you're going to making a purchase from that list of the supplier which they will be notifying, then you will not be allowed to claim the ITC on such transaction, right? So this was about your section 38, which has been now notified, which is a revised section 38. But since we are saying that at every places they have defined within the prescribed time limit, within the prescribed limits and all, but that prescribed time period or the limits is still not defined by the rules. So we have to wait and see what exactly that will be when that actually gets notified. Now the other changes about the reference to 43A. So we know that section 43A was never notified. It was introduced when we had the new returns and all. So when they were introducing this annexure 1 and annexure 2 and all this thing, but that was never even launched, so it was scrapped. So in that case, whatever the reference, wherever we have the reference for 43A has been removed now. The other part is like cancellation of the registration due to non-filing of the return. So if there is a composition taxpayer, right? So when there is a composition taxpayer and that person has not filed their GSTF4 till 3 months from the due date, in that case their GST will get cancelled. So this was already there, but the line they have given over there was 3 consecutive tax period. Now they have changed that to the due date, like they have changed it like a due date of your GSTF4. So 3 months from the due date of furnishing that particular return, after that they will actually cancel the registration. Similarly, when it comes to the cancellation of a regular returns, earlier it used to be the consecutive months, right? But again, for the QRMP people, there was a problem. So they have now cleared it that for QRMP taxpayer, the limitation is 2 tax period, and for the regular taxpayer who is filing monthly return, it is 6 consecutive months. After that, if you don't file that, then your GST will be cancelled. So this was some of the changes, and we were just talking about all the reconciliations which we have to do, right? We have to claim the ITC and all. We have to look into 2B. We have to check ITC available, ITC not available, and all. So this is something which we always have to do. Now I could see there's one question from Jyoti who is asking, can we avail ITC of 21-22 till 31st October? Jyoti, we can actually claim ITC in relation to FY 21-22 till 30th of November. So this particular change, right, which is applicable from 1st October, is also for FY 21-22. So we can always claim till 30th of November. But when I'm saying 30th November, you remember that this can be done only in the October return, and your 3B, right, 3B for the month of October due date is like 20th of November. So which means maximum, and I'm assuming that you are going to file return on time, so the maximum time limit to claim the ITC would be your 20th of November. if you are filing on time, and if you're delaying, then it will be 30th of November. Right. So I think this was one of the question, and I think another question is from Umesh, who is asking, I filed my GST1 on 11th November, and my recipient claims input pertaining to FY 21-22. So Umesh, assume that you are going to file on 11th of November, right? I'm assuming that October return, right? October return you are going to file on 11th of November. So ultimately, this person will be able to see this in their like a GST 2B for the October return period itself, which will be generated on 14th of November. So yes, they will be able to claim that ITC. So if there is an ITC related to FY 21-22, the recipient will be allowed to claim the ITC, because now the date for claiming ITC has been extended till 30th of November. So now we were just talking about all these changes. The another important change is about the sequential filing of GST1. So we would have actually seen that lot many times, right? There used to be a supplier, let's say, who has filed for April, but he has not filed for May. And then he again filed for June. So in between, there was some return which was never filed by GST1. So it used to be a lot of problem for us as a recipient. So now the government says that that will not be even allowed. So unless that person has filed for the month of Feb, let's say, or maybe May in our example, unless that person filed for the month of May, he will not be allowed to file the return for the month of June. So there should be a sequential filing. So let's say if he has filed for April, then he should file for May. Unless he filed for May, he will not be allowed to file the GST1 for the month of June. So that is what they are saying, that you have to file all the returns. So which means if your last return is filed, we have to assume that all of your previous return is also filed. Then there is another change, which is the due date of filing of GSTF 5. We know that there is a non-resident taxable person who has to file GSTF 5, and the date used to be 20th of the next month. Now it has been reduced. Now the due date has been reduced to 13th of the next month. So you can file your GSTF file by 13th of the next month. Similarly, there is a change which is GSTF 3B. Now the problem also, there used to always be a problem that people, they never filed GSTF 1, but they were filing 3B, right? So now the government says that, see, unless you file your GST1, you will not be allowed to file even GST3B. So let's say for October, unless I file my GST1 for the month of October, I will not be allowed to file my GST3B. So many people say, right, okay, at least I will be saving my interest and all, let's just file 3B first. One, I will be filing, maybe delaying in filing. So the government says, no, you can't. Unless you file your GST1, you won't be allowed to file your 3B. So even if a big company is, right, for them the late fees is just a minute, right? It's just a 50 rupees per day. But when it comes to interest, it could be heavy, because I have to make the payment in the form of cash. So they used to like, okay, let's just file 3B first. We'll file one at a later stage. But there they say no. First you file your GST1, so that the recipient can also see that ITC in their 2B, and then only you will be allowed to claim, or I would say file your GST 3B. So this is like another change which they have made, and which has already been notified. In the same way, when it comes to GST rate, so today we have a late fees of not filing GST1 or GST3B on time. Now they have said there would also be a late fees if you don't file your GST8 on time. So if your GST8 is not filed on time, in that particular case also there would be a late fees. So they are going to charge the late fees if you don't file GST8 on time. Now the other part is, the another important change is, I would say, that restriction for utilizing the amount available. You would say this is already there. So we know that there is a rule 86B which talks about that one person you have to make in the form of cash. I'm assuming that you are not into that exception category, but that was always a rule. What about the section? There was no such section, right? So there was a lot of litigation on that. How can a rule override a section? So that's the reason they have now brought this in the section itself. So under section number 49 subsection 4, they have introduced this so that there is some validity to that particular rule. So now that rule actually becomes a valid because they have introduced that in the section, and the section has been notified. So here they are saying, if and maybe in future they may come up with more restriction, they may come up with some more things. Today it's 86B, rule number 86B, where they say that one person has to be paid in the form of cash. Maybe tomorrow they may come up with more conditions where you will not be allowed to utilize your entire balance which is available in your electronic credit ledger. Then I think this is a really very important change, and this we were waiting for. In a cases where we have a multiple GST on the same pen, and let's say I have a lot of balance, cash ledger balance in one particular GSTN, but in the second I don't have. And rather than I'm making a challan payment in that second GSTN, I want to transfer from that first GSTN where I have an excess balance. So now it is allowed. So under a single PAN, if you have a multiple GSTN, it will be allowed to transfer the electronic cash ledger balance from your one GSTN to the another GSTN. But again, you have to make sure when we are talking about this is about the cash ledger balance and not the credit ledger balance, because people may get confused. Okay, I have a lot of ITC in my one GSTN, but in the second GSTN I don't have much ITC. Can I transfer that? The answer is no, you can't. They're not talking about the transferring of the ITC balance. They're talking about the transfer of the cash ledger balance, which means you have made the payment in the form of cash, you have wrongly paid some challan, and now you want to utilize this in another GSTN. So you can always transfer from one GSTN to another GSTN on the same pen, and then can you get utilized in the another GSTN rather than getting the refund or asking for the refund for the particular GSTN. Right. So here, so this we just talk about the transfer. Now, interest part. So this is, I think, a very important thing. And what they are saying, first we used to always get confused. Okay, because whenever we look into section 53, it talks about two-way communication. It is not, if it is not communicated properly and still you have claimed the ITC, then you have to reverse that ITC. But they are saying it is not only related to the communication. It could be because of the other reasons also, where you have claimed wrong ITC or you have utilized the wrong ITC. Example could be I wrongly, even if it was coming in 2B, let's say I have not received the goods, still I have claimed that ITC. Then I have to reverse that ITC, right? I have wrongly availed as well as utilized that ITC. In that case, I have to pay the interest, right? So they have now made it properly. That is not only related to the matching concept. It can be because of the wrong ITC, because of other reasons also. So they are saying the interest is 18%, and that interest will be levied only when you have also utilized that ITC. I'll give you one very simple example. Think about in the month of August, right? You have claim ITC of 1 lakh rupees, but actually you were allowed to claim ITC only 80,000. But you have wrongly claimed like 1 lakh ITC, which means 20,000 you have extra claimed the ITC. Now what happened in that particular month? You had no liability at all. When you didn't had any liability at all, but still you have shown in 3B there is an ITC of 1 lakh rupees. Question is whether there will be some interest which will be levied. The answer is no, because you never utilize that ITC. So in electronic credit ledger, when you see your balance, it's still 1 lakh rupees. You never utilize that ITC for discharging your liability. So in this case, let's say in the next month when you realize your mistake and you reverse that ITC, question is, do you have to pay the interest? The answer is no. You don't have to pay because you have never utilized that balance. But in case, let's say there was also a liability of 2 lakh in that previous month, and you have utilized this entire 1 lakh rupees against that liability of 2 lakh, in that case, when in the next month when you reverse that, do you have to pay interest? The answer is yes, because you have utilized that amount of the ITC which was wrongly claimed, right? So this is the concept of this, that whenever you're utilizing that ITC, you have to pay interest, but if you're not utilizing that ITC, then you don't have to claim the interest. So here it was about the interest. Similarly, we talked about GSTR 1, right? That for GSTR 1, we can like do all the rectifications and all till 30th November. In 3B also the same thing. Same thing is applicable for GSTR 8 also. For GSTR 8, we can do all the amendments and all till your 30th of November. And again, it's not the return, it's about the due date. It's a timeline, right? Till 30th November. And this is some changes which was related to ITC, and I think this was already applicable from the August return period. And we do have a separate video for that. I would suggest if you can refer to that to actually understand like what are the changes which is related to 3B. And this is a separate video already on the YouTube. You should always go through that so that you understand about this in a deep end, because this is a really detailed thing. Uh, Now we will maybe covering a Q&A session. And also, since we talk about a lot of reconciliation, right? Ultimately, to know if we have to do certain amendments, we have to do certain additions, the timeline is 30th November. But as I told you, it's not the November return period. It's always the due date of filing your GST 3B or filing of your GST 1. And the due date for filing 1 and 3B is like October ka due date, which is 11th of November or maybe your 20th of November. So you have to do all this thing by 11th of November or by 20th of November if you are a compliant taxpayer. And if you're a quarterly filer, then the due date is even much before that, right? Which is in October itself rather than in November. So this is something we should do. You should do a proper reconciliation between your GST1, the books, and your 3B, and do all the adjustments on time in your 3B and the one itself. Similarly, if you have to do a reconciliation between your 2B, the purchase register, and 3B, and if there's certain adjustment, if there's some unclaimed ITC, claim it now. If there have to be some reversal which needs to be done, you should do it now. And again, ClearTax come up with a solution where it actually talks about like doing all the reconciliation. And I would suggest you can always request for the demo also, where the ClearTax team will give you a live demo of how you can automate all this thing rather than manually tracking all the invoices and showing in 3B after doing all the reconciliation. So this was all about like a recent changes which is made in respect of claiming ITC, doing all the amendments, and in fact more changes, which is even the revised section 38, which is a very crucial section. And hope you understood about this. And still, if you have any queries, any doubts, you can always ping us. You can mail us at gstsupport@cleartext.in. That is our mail ID. We're happy to answer you over there. And even you can put on the chat box. If you put over there, we'll take that queries also. I could see there is one question from Vinod who is asking with reference to section 38 specified period is still not prescribed. Will the provision will be applicable for 1st October? We know no. Though the section have been notified, but we know there is no rules. So how would we even follow that? So that's the reason we'll not be able to follow that till we get the rules. So whenever we get the rules, then only we'll be able to follow that. Right, so I think there are not much question. There were two more questions which I have already covered. And with this, we'll end our session. Still, if you have any queries in relation to GST and all, you can always reach out to us at gstsupport@cleartext.in. And if you want a demo of ClearText, you can always ask our team, and you can mail us at gstsupport@cleartext.in. With this, thanks very much for watching the session. Thank you very much.